that's a happier process. And it's consistent with what awakening truly means. I just desire for each one of you to not find any of this to be a heavy, burdensome project. You, remembering who you really are, is a joyful thing. You reincorporating your experience of being the son or daughter of God. Perfect. Whose function is only to recognize God in everything, which is a totally joyous experience. You, whose function it is to recognize God in everything with the realization that everything is some aspect of the infinitude of your being, is an equally joyous thing. Because what and who you are is redefined into a wholeness, into a oneness, where conflict is non-existent. Just beware of anyone or anything that would tell you that you've got to go on an internal witch hunt to find out what's wrong with yourself before you've gone to the Holy Spirit to ask, what is the truth? And by all means, don't pick up a book, whether it's A Course in Miracles or the Bible or any other book. Don't pick up a book and use the intellectual principles you find there as the proper tool or tools to use to find out what is wrong with you so that you might fix yourself. Or so that you, using the principles, the words in those books, can help another find out what's wrong with them and fix them. Learned principles, this is important, learned principles applied to the human condition lack the inspiration and power that accompany the discernment and experience of what truth is, which you will only have if you go within, let down your defenses, and invite the Father in, invite the Holy Spirit in, invite what is nothing more than your right mind in, and abandon your tiny, personal, private, isolated self that would take the words in the book to beat some sense into your fellow man so that your fellow man might wake up. Or beat some sense into yourself so that you might wake up. I've said it before, the only holy books that are worth their salt are the ones that manage to convince you that there is a God, and that this God is your friend, and that cause you, in one way or another, to abandon your insistence upon your private, isolated, self-determined sense of self, and invite something else into your space, into you, so that the isolation is broken, and so that the line of communication between you and your Father is opened up once again, and you are infilled by the Father's love and the Father's vision, and which encourages you not to address your fellow man to fix him or her up until you have done that. So that you no longer continue to reaffirm that existence is about isolated, private, selfish entities controlling each other for selfish reasons, even if it's in the guise of fairness and kindness and love. Let's bring the joy back into waking up. Let's lighten up. You can be persistent and diligent without being hard on yourselves. You can be honest without being critical toward yourself and others. You can be practical without losing your ability to soar. In other words, you can be practical without becoming grounded like a dead weight. Generally speaking, when you say that you need to be practical, you mean that you need to do whatever you need to do to save your ass, to protect your ass. But practical really means not being duped into acting out of ignorance. Being practical means having enough clarity to want to know what the truth is. Not the awful truth about you, but the divine truth about you. Not the awful truth about your brother, but the divine truth about your brother. Why? So that might be what you facilitate the embodiment of. You see? You can be disciplined. You can use your mind in a disciplined way without the use of discipline being some sort of self-punishment. Got it? Okay. We will go into the book. Thoughts begin in the mind of the thinker, from which they extend outward. This is as true of God's thinking as it is of yours. Because your minds are split, you can also perceive as well as think. Yet perception cannot escape from the basic laws of mind. Another way of putting this is that just as you can seem to be the Christ behaving as though you aren't the Christ, everything you do as though you're not the Christ is utilizing the capacities of the Christ that you are. Likewise, whatever the laws are that govern the Christ also govern what is thought by a Christ who has forgotten that he's the Christ. Again, because your minds are split, you can also perceive as well as think. Yet, perception cannot escape from the basic laws of mind. You perceive from your mind and extend your perceptions outward. Although perception of any kind is unnecessary, indeed God does not indulge in it, although perception of any kind is unnecessary, you made it, and the Holy Spirit can therefore use it as well. Now, let's just stop for a moment. What is perception? The best way to describe it is that it is the conscious experience one has after applying a little torque to an original, flawless idea that God has thought. When I say a little torque, I mean a little bias. And when you take a metal rod and you take hold of each end with something that can hold the pipe or the rod solidly, and you twist the pipe, you create torque. And you also, in creating torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E, when you apply torque, you create stress in the pipe, in the rod. So when you apply a little torque, a little bias to one of God's ideas, you create stress together with a distorted experience of that real thing. And so instead of seeing what a thing truly is, you see your perception of it, and inherent in that perception of it is stress, distress. Now, again, although perception, a torqued experience of something real, of any kind is unnecessary, you made it, and the Holy Spirit can therefore use it well. He can inspire perception and lead it toward God by making it parallel to God's way of thinking, and thus guarantee their ultimate meeting. This convergence seems to be far in the future, only because your mind is not in perfect alignment with the idea, and therefore does not want it now. That's the only reason you don't wake up every morning and see the kingdom of heaven. You do not want it now. You prefer the torqued perception of it. Why? Because you think your salvation depends upon the bias you're bringing and the persistence with which you bring it. Because, you know what? It's up to you. It's entirely up to you to keep your perception of the universe together, to keep it going, so that it doesn't collapse. And the minute you withdraw your investment of energy and attention and reinforcement from it, it will collapse, because the torque hasn't been placed there by God and isn't therefore part of reality. You keep the kingdom of heaven, the experience of the kingdom of heaven, torqued. Because in your present mindset, your existence depends on it. Your safety depends upon it. Your continuity depends upon it. You think. That is your belief. You know what? At the bottom line, the reason you don't let go of it is because you would have to abandon whatever sense of power you presently think you have. Whatever authority you presently think you have. And you think that this power and authority that you personally have is the very life force of your being, the utterly, simply essential element of your identity. And so you are obsessed with your power. That's why the word yielding is such an unappealing word. Yielding. Oh. You mean, let someone else be in charge of me? No. What I mean is, by the word yielding, abandoning your sense of power, your sense of authority, not so that something else can be in charge of you, but so that you might discover that in the absence of your expressing power and authority, you will find that you have the conscious experience of reality, of the kingdom of heaven, wherein no one is exercising authority or power. Because the movement of being, the movement of creation is already done, is already being done, is already inexorably in movement, and no one has any personal responsibility of being in charge of it. Everyone has the freedom to be in full acknowledgement of the infinite perfection and beauty and bliss of creation, in which you are benign and invulnerable, along with everything else. And because of this lack of need for power and authority, you can be fully present with the whole brotherhood. You can be undefendedly present with every aspect of creation, because there will be no fear that it might kill you. You will have no fear that if you are walking in the forest, that a tree might fall on you and kill you. Because God is indivisible and therefore unconflicted, and therefore creation is incapable of being at odds with any other part of creation. The purpose of letting go of this power that you think is essential to and inseparable from your identity, the reason for abandoning this power is so that you might find that it is completely irrelevant to reality, and that its maintenance constitutes a constant distraction from your capacity to be present with everything without defense, and therefore that you have the capacity to feel the meaning of everything fully as some aspect of the infinitude of you. Now your mind is a little bit more in perfect alignment with the idea, and therefore does want it a little bit more now than you did 15 minutes ago. Continuing. The Holy Spirit uses time, but does not believe in it. Coming from God, He uses everything for good, but He does not believe in what is not true. Since the Holy Spirit is in your minds must be able to believe only what is true. Your minds must also be able to believe only what is true. Your minds really are able to believe only what is true. It's not a capacity you have to develop. Because you are the Christ right now, your minds must be able to believe only what is true. It's a capacity you have. But it's like an unused muscle. The muscle's there. You have the capacity. You have the capacity to be unfettered with a clutter of untruths that you believe. Now you initially will find that as you let go of them, it would seem as though it's a narrowing down of your attention because there's so much less to think about. Without the clutter of untrue things. And only believing what is true, it will seem as though your attention's becoming much narrower than it used to be. Because, of course, you can imagine infinite possibilities of untrue things. Now, the fact is that what is true is infinitely present and infinitely expressed. And so there's a lot to give your attention to. But you know what? When you begin to allow your mind to be engaged only with those things that are true, the fact that all of what is true is unconflicted and in harmony with every other thing that is true, there's not much static in your mind. And you can experience more with less confusion. Because it all fits together. It all blends together. And so you're aware of the greater infinitude of what is true with less effort than it took for you to cope with the myriad of beliefs that were untrue and which were therefore conflicted by nature and which therefore kept you on guard because you had to keep everything straight for your own self-protection and your own peace of mind. And it took a lot of control, and it took a lot of power. And of course, every time you used all this power, you were reinforcing Your identity, you thought. The manufactured identity, the made-up identity that you created after you got your bill of divorcement and became identity-less in your mind. So, again, since the Holy Spirit is in your minds must also be able to believe only what is true. The Holy Spirit can speak only for this, because He speaks for God. He tells you to return your whole mind to God because it has never left Him. Your whole mind never got broken up into pieces. Even though you seem to create an imaginary line around yourself or an imaginary sphere around yourself, and you said, all of me that's inside the sphere, I will call me. And everything on the outside all of me that's on the outside of the sphere, I will call not me. All you're doing is making up a story that doesn't affect the uninterruptible continuity of all of you. The Holy Spirit tells you to return your whole mind to God because it has never left Him. If it has never left Him, you need only perceive it as it is to be returned. So, not a lot of book learning, not a lot of principles to learn. If your whole mind never left God, you need only perceive it as it is to be returned. Perceive it as it is. Well, how are you going to perceive it as it is? Intellectually? Like A plus B equals C, therefore D, E, and F are what I am. Oh, no. It's not an intellectual process like that. It's a matter of inviting God in again. It's a matter of inviting the Holy Spirit in. It's a matter of acknowledging that there is in you a place of excellence and turning your attention there so that you might learn of this excellence of you with a willingness to abandon the definitions you have created about yourself, so that you might let your right mind begin to register with you as an experience. And that's the way you perceive your mind as it is. And when you perceive it as it is that way, it has been returned. Continuing, the full awareness of the atonement then is the recognition that the separation never occurred. You are beginning to glimpse the fact that maybe indeed you are really at home right now, that maybe you really are in the kingdom of heaven right now, even though you're calling it something else and insisting that it's something else. It's beginning to dawn on you that you might actually be looking at all of this right from the middle of the kingdom of heaven with a Christ mind that has the capacity, that really has the ability to see only what is real. And that is giving you an experiential glimpse of the fact that the separation never occurred. Now listen to this. The ego cannot prevail against this because it is an explicit statement